Welcome everybody, Outdoor Facilities Roundtable. Hopefully everybody is in the right spot. We won't call you out if you leave real quick. We won't notice, but my name is Christian Miller. I'm the Coordinator of Facilities and Leadership with Texas A&M University. I'm joined by Johnny Kiefer. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hello everybody, thanks for joining us. My name is Johnny Kiefer. I'm the Graduate Assistant of Facility Operations at Emporia State University.
So today we're going to be talking about outdoor facilities, their operations. Spoiler alert, we will be talking about COVID a little bit and how that's impacted us with these outdoor facilities. I think we've talked and touched a lot on indoor facilities, especially with the really solid roundtable that we had on that this morning, but wanted to make sure that those of us who live in the world of outdoors, or at least have a hand in that, get to share some information and some things that we've been doing so far throughout this process. Johnny's going to share some of the topics that we kind of compiled and came up with here in just a minute or so, but we're really just here to kind of help drive the ship and facilitate these conversations. So if you all have things that you want to talk about, we're going to kind of keep the discussion and the conversations flowing as that is needed. So we'll go ahead and get rolling with this stuff. Don't want to forget to thank our sponsors. You can see them all there. Thanks for their generosity for making this experience and our ability to still connect during this time of virtual interaction, making that free for all of us. So definitely shout out to all of them for giving us this opportunity. Really appreciate it. And then also making sure you follow Region 4 on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, their website. I think their MySpace got deleted from this slide, so if you need that, you can get in contact with Ross. He still has it, I know. But make sure you're following them on all of those outlets as well.
So like Christian said, we're kind of here just to facilitate and guide the ship. But a few things we wanted to go over specifically, trying to spark some conversation, are physical distancing, masks, return of events, winter break plans, and risk management. At any point, if anyone here has something to pitch in, feel free to unmute your mic or message in the chat. I know Ross is monitoring that. We will also be monitoring. And if there's any other topics towards the end, we have a slide for anything we did not cover. So if there's anything any pressing issues about outdoor facilities, topics you think are important to talk about, please feel free to send those our way in the chat as well.
All right, getting the ball rolling with everybody's favorite topic of physical distancing. We tried to separate the idea of physical distancing from masks, obviously being aware that there will be some overlap with those two topics, but starting off with physical distancing, you can see the kind of the discussion questions we have there. Right now, we're wondering if your universities have physical distancing mandates at outdoor facilities, how are those being enforced, and then what programming opportunities do you have that kind of abide by those mandates? So I'll go ahead, I'll get the ball rolling. How about that? Well, I will be the first one. So we do have physical distancing mandates in our facility, or at our facility, indoor and outdoor. We require 6 feet of distance maintained at all times. We are enforcing that with our facility staff that are stationed out there, unless it is through one of our programs. So we are running limited sport clubs are able to practice. They're doing primarily conditioning and drills only. We are also running a lot of modified intramural sports. So with physical distancing being prioritized within that. So within those programs, enforcement is primarily being handled by their individual supervisors, but the overall facility or while folks are doing free play and things like that, it is enforced by our facilities students out there.
Hey everybody, Ross Rodriguez with the University of Texas at Austin, and just like our colleagues down the road in College Station, we also are enforcing some physical distancing guidelines at our outdoor facilities. We played some less than conventional intramural sports this fall season, including some foot golf and some foot tennis, which I thought was a new one for us. We also managed 35 outdoor tennis courts, and those we've been allowed to play one-on-one and two-on-two team tennis, as well as foot tennis. And pickleball is really booming this semester, more so than any other. So we've been allowing some activity in that regard, but no conventional team sports are permitted at this time. And on top of everything that Christian mentioned, we also have additional signage that we have placed out on our fields that describe the things that are allowed and are not allowed at our facility.
Yeah, we also put additional signage out, kind of scattered throughout. One of the biggest challenges that we have had is that our outdoor complex does not have controlled access. So the university currently is not allowing guests on campus or visitors on campus. And so we normally just do ID checks periodically throughout the shift, but kind of having more emphasis on that to ensure that those folks are university affiliates, on top of then also mandating physical distancing has been a challenge that we've had to kind of deal with as well. Does anybody not have a physical distancing requirement for the outdoor facilities?
Hey, Glenn Kemper at Logan University. We do not have a mandate. It is certainly encouraged at all times. We had been trying to organize some 2-on-2 sand volleyball, and even we got a permission to do 4-on-4 sand volleyball, as well as pickleball as well. But no, we haven't. I mean, a mandatory, no, we've not had that. But we are having people wear masks. They should be wearing a mask all time on campus, no matter what their activity is. But again, that can be kind of fudged too, especially in outdoor sports like the pickleball.
This is Michael Huddy. I'm at Sam Houston State. So as far as our outdoor facilities goes, when it comes to our intramural fields, only 2 of them don't have controlled access. So when things happen after hours, like when we're leaving and we see students just playing, we just update our signage to kind of enforce that. But as far as when intramurals are doing something on campus on the fields, our intramural staff has been pretty good at doing events like cornhole. They started doing a punt pass kick thing. So whenever they start doing that, the social distancing and all that is encouraged. But as far as after hours, when people just go up there and they want to play ultimate frisbee, it's like a play at your own sort of risk sort of thing.
For those of you who are offering some of these non-traditional intramural sports opportunities, do you charge for those, and have you adjusted the rate that the students have to pay to participate, or are those included in their fee?
UT Austin is charging for our intramural sports. It's a very much reduced fee compared to what like your standard softball, flag football, or soccer would be. But there is basically a fee to cover our staffing for that event or that league if it's going to be a multi-week league.
Gotcha. Yeah, we use a paper player model at A&M, and they did charge the traditional rate at the start of the semester, and that helped us kind of push forward to provide some traditional sports, obviously with some heavy modifications. So we were able to run we played 16-inch softball to reduce the need for gloves, because that was the biggest sanitizing concern. We did play kickball, 4-on-4 sand volleyball. They just got approved to play a modified version of 4-on-4 Ultimate that has like you can't mark within 6 feet and things like that. 4-on-4 soccer is getting ready to be approved, as well as a kind of a backyard flag football. I guess flag football is not the right term because they're not using flags, but basically they're just running like college overtime. So you get one play to score, and then they're going to progressively move back and do that. And participation went way up. I know they sold drastically fewer play passes at the start of the semester, but then almost doubled it, I think, within the last 2 weeks once that modified soccer and football got approved. So we do have a lot of students who are willing to put up with the modifications in order to play something that relatively resembles a sport that they've played once before. And to my knowledge, we haven't really had many complaints about folks paying the traditional rate for reduced offerings. They just didn't purchase it if they didn't want it, if there wasn't something they wanted to play.
A quick follow-up to that as well. Are there any universities here that are allowing more traditional sports? I know in our indoor facilities, there are some places that are allowing, full 5-on-5 basketball, while their schools, are allowing no basketball. Are there anyone here where their outdoor facilities are doing more traditional sports?
Gina up here from University of Arkansas. The sports we've tried outside or have been successful outside, we've done softball, but other than that, like we've put up to our the university's committee that essentially would either approve or deny our attempt at 4-on-4 flag football. That's kind of, we're waiting on some approvals from those above us to agree to letting us play some of those more traditional sports. But again, we're kind of waiting on someone else for approval on that.
Cool. All right. If you have additional questions or concerns with physical distancing, we can always circle back. But in the sake of time, we're going to move on. Similar, but a little bit different.
Yeah, so like has been mentioned before, masks always kind of go hand in hand with physical distancing. With that, different universities have different mandates when it comes to masks. Different states have different, guidelines when it comes to what needs to happen. So kind of going off of that, does your university have face covering mandates at outdoor facilities? And then similar to the last question, how are you enforcing these, and what programming opportunities have you found that satisfy this?
At Logan, we've done it where when we organize sand volleyball, you have to wear your mask at all the time. But if people just drop in, then it's not as well enforced on that. But, like has been said, students really want to play something that resembles a sport they know. So they're willing to wear the mask in exchange for us organizing the activities instead of just drop in, I mean.
Glenn, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
It is Michael at SHSU. So something, an outdoor facility I'm kind of mad at myself I forgot to mention is our university camp. So we have a university campground that we traditionally hold Bearcat Camp for incoming freshmen, and we did have camp sessions this past summer. As far as face coverings and everything, all of that was required for people who attended the camp. And to my knowledge, we didn't have any major cases. But as far as just the kids were incoming freshmen, excited to start school, even though we're in the middle of a pandemic. So I guess they didn't have a problem complying to the rules when it came to wearing your face mask and going by the policies or anything like that.
Yeah, at A&M, we also require face covering at all of our outdoor facilities. This is a little bit different than the university mandate. So the university actually does not require face covering if you're outdoors and are reasonably able to maintain 6 feet of physical distancing. But rather than play that game with the students and try to put our supervisors in a position to be successful, we basically just said that anytime you're within rec sports property, you need to have face covering on. And so that's probably been the biggest challenge, is how do you supervise or monitor face coverings, over acres of play space, and make sure that as soon as you say something and then you turn around and go back to another field, they aren't taking it back down. But we do require it, whether they're playing intramurals, free play, just hanging out there. Sport clubs, all of them do have to wear face coverings at all times.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm at Washita Baptist University, and our school mandate is if you're outside and you can maintain distance, you don't have to wear a mask. Well, then you gather a bunch of people together, and we said the people playing the sport have to wear a mask because they're focused on the sport. And most of our sports, we haven't done traditional ones, but you're moving a little bit more than normal and things like that. But then the crowd is all on the sidelines, and you look over and it's like, wait a second, you guys all need to get spread out. And so, yeah, you're either going to be yelling at them to get 6 foot apart, or not yelling. You're either going to be asking them to be 6 feet apart or asking them to put a mask on. The mask is a little easier to enforce and notice and remind, I guess. That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that, Christian.
Kind of going off of that to the second bullet point there about enforcing it. I know there's always going to be those students or those groups that like to keep pulling down their mask or refusing to put it on. How have you guys at the universities gone about ensuring that, like, do they get warnings? You know what I mean? How is there a way that you're tracking individual participants if it continues to be an issue throughout competition or intramurals?
This is Gina again up at Arkansas. We are not trying to track specific users, unless it really becomes a true issue. We give our student employees hopefully some empowerment that if someone is giving them an issue, they can give them the boot. But if, giving them reminders, asking them to comply, and if they don't, then they got to leave. But of course, if someone, causes a big ruckus, then, we ask them to do a formal write-up, et cetera, so we can, reach out to that student or member that was causing the issue. But, we realize it's not going to be worth our time to try to track every single situation that someone didn't have their mask over their face properly. So that's kind of how we are rolling with that, is trying to empower our students to feel comfortable of managing that, or if it's bad, to write them up. Going off of that, I do have a kind of a question for the group about, we talk about face covering. I know that there's someone, I don't know if they're in here, had mentioned that they had banned gaiters or neck gaiters as being counted as official face coverings. So we have not gotten there yet at Arkansas. And so I guess I'm just curious, like, if others are kind of experiencing that, or if that's kind of along the same lines here in the masks section.
I'll tell you, at Logan University, we banned the gaiters several months ago. They really encourage the surgical masks. And actually, we're a small school and it's a chiropractic college, so they have supplied surgical masks. We have them at pretty much all entrances. Obviously, they want students to bring their own masks, but we do provide them for our students.
At OU, that they only allow surgical masks, no gaiters, and they've also gotten rid of masks with the one-way vowels. So if you're on campus, you are not allowed to have inside or during any OU activity to have any mask other than just a surgical mask. no gaiters, no valve mask or anything like that.
The University of Texas has a website that's dedicated towards approved and encouraged face coverings. And much like you, Gary, they have strongly encouraged students to move away from the gaiter and move away from the masks with the one-way valves, anything that allows particles to penetrate through. There is a strongly encouraged face covering, an optimal face covering, a strongly discouraged face covering. But I think in the eyes of our administration, any face covering is better than a person coming into a facility without one. So we do have a stack of 3-ply non-surgical masks also available in the event that a person comes to one of our indoor facilities with one of the less recommended face coverings. But at our outdoor facilities, it's not required that they have a mask on unless they can adhere to 6-foot distancing policies.
Yeah, the university gave every student a few masks when they arrived on campus um, for the semester. And then many departments where visitors, when I would say visitors, students and staff, when they come, especially to our rec facility, they gave us thousands of masks either to give out, and they actually made us a mass distribution center back in August. So students would come here to pick up their 2 free masks. And, they were all logoed with OU on it. They had their choices of like a black one or a red one, white. So they tried to make it more of an event. So it'd be somewhat sort of fashionable, which kind of encouraged students to come in. And all they had to do is bring their ID, and we scan their ID. And if the system says they had not picked up their mask, they got a handful of masks. And if they wanted even surgical masks, we would give them 4 to 5 for them as well. And even when we opened back in July, our risk management team on campus was receiving hundreds of thousands of masks, and they brought us, cases of them. Say just use them as you can, and then give them out for people who don't have it, because they really wanted to avoid people wearing the valve mask and gaiters, because once they deemed those as less effective, there was a massive push amongst the vice presidents and all the divisions to at least give students a mask. And if there are visitors who come, like for tours, and they have a gaiter, they get an OU mask.
So similar to what Ross said at UT, at Sam Houston, we have a strongly discourage wearing gaiters on campus. Coincidentally, we have masks and gaiters for resale. And as soon as the gaiters came in, the next day we got the article saying, "Hey, they're ineffective. Don't sell those." So we quickly took that off of resale. So we're just kind of fighting through it.
We at A&M must be on the trickle down of that information, because we still allow gaiters and the one-way valve masks. We just last week went away from folks who had medical exemptions could apply for an exemption to wear the face shield, the plastic face shield, like you can see back there. And they just last week went away from that. So folks, it was only like 6 people on campus who had that. So now everybody has to be in a face covering, but it can be a gaiter, it can be a bandana. Yeah, as long as it covers their nose, mouth, and chin.
I'm curious, is that something that everyone is asking? Is that something that everyone else is seeing on their campuses? Because we've had one person, he would just wear a face shield, and we sat him down and talked to him. Now he wears his mask and his face shield, but as long as he's wearing a mask, I'm like, I don't really care. But is that something that everyone else is seeing on their campuses?
We had a gentleman come in a Spider-Man suit, full Spider-Man suit to work out. And so we actually stopped him, and he had his mask on under his suit. And so it was pretty comical. But once we realized that he was wearing his mask, we let him go. I mean, and yeah, it was Peter Parker to the fullest.
But you let him go and he worked out in his Spider-Man costume?
We did. We let him go run.
Well, how do you know that it wasn't just Spider-Man though? That would be my question.
Well, he did have a little difficulty lifting up some heavier barbells. So,
Oh, okay. Yeah, fair enough.
and he walked everywhere. He didn't swing from his web.
Fair enough.
Over at UT El Paso, UTEP and stuff, I guess in answer to the question, previous question, of course we had no superhero appearances, but we they basically just this university has been I guess lax, for lack of a better term. I mean they really haven't been too specific about the about going to a more I guess proven or a thicker mask or more effective mask and stuff like that. Like I said, someone just mentioned, this could be bandana, it could be any kind of face covering, as long as it covers like those three central areas, the nose, mouth, and chin or whatever. But what I have noticed with us though is that they, and I don't know if you all are aware and stuff, that but in El Paso, there's been recent spikes that have gone pretty high. I think have gone as far as high as a 14% positivity rate in the community. And that, of course, eventually caught up to the university, which had been controlling the cases, the positive cases pretty well. But then with the recent spikes in the community and stuff, that kind of carried over naturally. But what they did start to do recently is reiterate, and I guess something that I think we all got lax with. I don't know if it's happened at other universities, but we kind of got lax as far as not the actual making sure, obviously the making them be mandatory to wear the mask was, I think, was always in place and stuff. But I think what I know I personally forgot, and I know a lot of our staff, was to reiterate how to properly wear it and to wash it and to dispose of the certain ones and stuff like that. And so that's kind of come into play now. That's kind of been at the forefront now a lot more. And now also the university, maybe, I guess maybe I think when we reopened with students and all, before it was just a certain amount of professional staff that was on duty, and then we were limited operations as far as just rental of through our outdoor adventure program, of camping equipment, having students come and retrieve their belongings from their lockers, that sort of thing, minimal traffic. But when the students all came back to work and we reopened for the campus, they started the testing, free testing, for COVID for the students and stuff, and they even came out with like screening applications and stuff, which I imagine is being done at all universities. I'm not sure if it's all the universities, but I think those came into play and stuff like that, but I don't think they were being enforced to the fullest and stuff. But now that's another thing that with the recent spikes that they started to do again is that now, like this week I've been out there. Well, now we're seeing positive cases within our own student employee staff. And so now we're asking all the students, the users of the facility, as well as the employees to show us where they've been permitted to come to campus and stuff, get through that screening app. And so they've kind of reinforced things and stuff like that, in a way one could say maybe after the fact, but I think those kinds of things, I think for a lot of us, it's become a reminder and stuff like that. I think they've kind of now insisted that they're going to come to campus either to work or to take classes in person classes. They have to go through that screening and they have to be tested a lot more often now. There were some students we found even in our own staff that hadn't even been tested once. So I thought, and now basically they want to continue to work on campus, and so they're going to have to test, and so like that. So now they become a little bit more stringent about all these protocols, I guess.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Cool. All right. We will move on from face covering to events. So at your outdoor facilities, are you currently hosting events? If yes, what mandates do you have in place? And if not, do you currently have a plan on when you hope to bring those back? Or what is the current outlook with that when it comes to events?
Currently, the University of Texas at Austin does not allow outside events in our facilities or at our outdoor satellites either, with the exception of a grandfather relationship that we have with a group called the Capital Area Tennis Association, or CATA. Obviously, tennis being one of those sports that can be played with social distancing guidelines enforced, we are allowed to host their home league matches. We've had to do away with some of our tournament operations because of the nature of a tournament, more people gathering around in between matches and trying to avoid the spread there. But with single league matches, it's kind of show up, player match, leave. And so we've been able to host those. We've been told, and that includes we're not allowing any home sport club competitions at this time. And we've been told that the spring of 2021 will mirror much of the fall for 2020. So I don't expect us to have a whole lot of events this upcoming spring, either, with the exception of a rec sports sponsored program in January. We will be hosting our Knowles Wilderness First Responder course, which is a revenue generator for our Outdoor Adventures program.
Hey, this is Kelsey from University of Arkansas. Weigh in on some events. We have event authorization and approval process that we have to go through administration. And so anyone who requests space, whether it's at our hyper facility or our sports complex, they have to one, ask us, and then we have to make sure that they go through the hoops of getting this form signed and making sure that either the department head, depending on the numbers of participants, possibly the chancellor even getting up that far to certain people. So that's some additional steps that they're taking. And then once we get approvals there, we also look at it internally to make sure that they're meeting our protocols. But events that we've hosted so far this semester, we had ROTC come out. They've done some trainings early in the morning, making sure that they've limited their numbers. They're not bringing, 100, 200 people out at one time. We had a ball tournament the other day with a group on campus. So still trying to push that inside and out, but it's very limited. I think there's been some more activity outside because of just there's more space involved. We have a limited space for events inside sometimes with things now, but still trying to provide opportunities for that to happen. And it's been a success, at least the few that we have done.
Hi, Emily Howland here at the University of Tulsa. We have not done any in-person events until this weekend. That'll be our first big one. And it'll just be can jam and cornhole outside, and then badminton and ping pong inside. We were restricted to only doing singles inside, but with can jam and cornhole outside, we could only do doubles. But yeah, we have a COVID risk response committee that you have to submit at least 2 weeks before. All in-person events have to be under 10 participants. But mostly internally, it's just making sure staff are still keeping up with masking policy, social distancing, and the like. So we're really excited to see how it goes and see if we can maybe host regular in-person events for students in the spring. So we're pretty excited about it.
So that event that you're doing this weekend, that's capped to 10 participants as well?
It's 10 per session. So I'm having everyone register online, and then we'll space it out as safely as possible.
Cool. We have not held any events at our outdoor facilities this semester, other than our internal programs that I've already discussed. Our first one will be next weekend. It is our tennis club, a student organization here on campus, is doing an internal tournament with their own participants. So like Ross mentioned, it's a sport that lends itself pretty naturally to physical distancing, but we're going to kind of use them as the guinea pig of how does it look as far as registration, how does it look as far as limited spectators, how are they doing with things like that, how do we think they do kind of self-monitoring, and then how many staff we think we would need. And that will kind of give us a baseline so that hopefully once the spring rolls around, some of these little bit larger events, we might have more of a basis to go off of.
At Logan, we've not had any events, and like others have said, our spring looks gonna look a lot like our fall, and our weather. I mean, it's been not very hospitable here the last week, and it's not going to be hospitable for a few more months. But in March, we are still scheduled to have a military cup. It was in combination with para powerlifting. Logan has a really close relationship with that. Last January, we did host a qualifier for the Olympics. It was one of the early rounds of that. That part's been canceled, but we're going to be doing one where it's going to be military folks coming in and performing the same things. That is still on, as far as I know. I'll be curious to see if it's on come March when it's on. Other than that, we're not hosting anything.
We haven't had any events in our outdoor facilities other than our internal intramural stuff, which has only been like 1 or 2 times. But we have had like numerous different departments within our division try to use our fields as a substitute because they can't do their regular event at their regular venue because of COVID regulations. Particularly Greek Life, we've gotten numerous emails from them about trying to do like their new member reveal at an IM field because they can't use the yard or the square area on campus. And so we've swiftly shut that down just because we don't want any form of trash or as an advisor, for a Greek organization on campus, I know when they say, oh, we're going to have 10 people, it means 100. So it's just very easy to weed that out. But other than that, we haven't done anything.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't think I touched on it, but similar to what a few others have said, when we get requests or when we're trying to look at new events or activities we'd like to bring in, we do have to submit it to a committee on campus, and it goes up through the VP of Student Affairs office, and then we kind of go back down with their blessing or not from there. Cool. All right. Moving on. Winter break, just around the corner. What plans do folks have, if any, as far as operating their facility over winter break? Whether maybe if you're not planning on operating it, is that traditional or is that a COVID mandated thing? What are people's plans for outdoor facilities over winter break?
We haven't thought that far. We're getting through we're just planning for the Thanksgiving holidays and what we're doing there. And a lot of our students will be going home after Thanksgiving. And so wondering what kind of hours we'll have from Thanksgiving to finals. I think we're just going to keep the same ones. But between finals and the start of the next semester, we haven't gotten that far. And like a lot of schools, spring break has gotten moved to early to extend the winter break. And I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised if we're closed, but I wouldn't be surprised if we're open a few hours every day as well.
The University of Arkansas, we've just recently extended our hours. We did a little trial period just to see usage rates, and there were some good usage numbers. So we decided to extend our hours, and we're open 4 to 9, 5 days a week now. And we're going to push through Thanksgiving week. We're going to be closed, but then afterwards, stay the course with the regular in-person, remote, virtual learning classes also being offered. So provide the students who are on campus still some place to go. It's nice and cold in Fayetteville, but we still want to provide that, be consistent with our hours. I think the 17th is our scheduled last day in December for our sports complex.
Have any of your universities basically expanded the Thanksgiving break so that it now extends through winter? That's what Texas A&M is doing. So when the students go home for Thanksgiving, they will actually not have to return to campus. All of their finals will be administered online. So we may have some students that we won't see for almost 2 months until they kind of come back into the fold in mid-January. So when we look at our outdoor usage, pretty much that week, a couple of days before Thanksgiving, we'll shut down. We won't really have anything out there until a couple of days before classes start up again in January.
Christian, like you, the University of Texas is doing something similar. We're stopping all in-person classes on November 25th, and then all finals will be done remote. Something that I found out that was interesting was our housing and dining department had been offering basically a credit on your housing and dining fee if you didn't come back after Thanksgiving, so that if you went home and were exposed to COVID-19, they didn't want you to bring it back onto campus. And so they were actually encouraging students not to come back, which made it tough for us trying to plan on who might be around to help us operate our facilities during that closure or during that extended break. Our outdoor satellites, we manage 4 of them here at the University of Texas at Austin, and we will close down the majority of them starting the week of like December 10th or 17th, whatever, like the week before Christmas. But from November 27th all the way through, we'll still have some hours at most of our facilities. And then from mid-December through mid-January, we will close down to just 1 outdoor satellite facility operational, just to give an outdoor space to recreate, but not necessarily our full complement of outdoor facilities.
Up at University of Arkansas, we're going to try to stay open as much as the students want to play and kind of operate on them. If no one shows up for the day, send our staff home, try to allow them to make that call, but at least provide some spaces. We will shut down over most of winter break, but we'll come right back online in January when we get back, just to give them somewhere to go if they decide to go. Originally, Arkansas was intending to not return after Thanksgiving as an option, and they've gone back on that and said we will be returning after Thanksgiving. So we're going to continue to push through with our outdoor facilities being open during that Thanksgiving to Christmas break or winter break time.
We normally use winter break for a lot of our external groups who want to come in and do large soccer tournaments or flag football tournaments, while we kind of let some of the grass recover from the semester. We really get a lot of use out of the turf over the winter break, but that will not be happening this winter. The biggest difference for us is just that extended closure from Thanksgiving on, but we are traditionally closed for the majority of that winter break. All right, keep us moving. Okay, so a couple of just general risk management topics. Folks are welcome to chime in with any additional that they may have related to this. But when it comes to risk management and COVID-19, something I realized that we are currently trying to work through is that we have limited numbers of locations as far as like lightning shelters and things like that. And how do we foresee, or do we foresee that being an issue in the event of inclement weather or some reason why we might have to shelter in place? And then also trying to balance physical distancing on top of that. Thankfully, knock on wood, hasn't come an issue or has not been an issue thus far. And then another topic of conversation, just kind of a quick poll, but have you adopted the use of bag valve mask for CPR in your facility, or are you using something else to help promote or prevent, I guess, the close contact with somebody who might be doing a rescue?
I'll tell you, we have not modified any of our shelter in place procedures. I think our risk strategy is hope. I mean, our locker rooms are pretty small. Our facility is pretty small too, but certainly, you know, in St. Louis, there's not that we're immune. We don't get a lot of tornadoes, but we're not immune from them either. We're just going to have to hope that it works out well, that, you know, we're not in there for long periods of time and that everybody has their mask on, because they probably will not be able to be physically distant in there. And with the CPR, I mean, as far as teaching, we've always talked BLS, so we've been using the bag valve mask for that. I do not have one out for our students should they need it. So I think there's some more hope on the risk management side.
I'll say at A&M Commerce, we haven't changed our shelter in place procedures for physical distancing because luckily we do have quite a few spaces to use. But we are in the transition of our CPR classes. We're going from the basic lay responder to C Pro. So we started with our supervisors, and any supervisor with that area, we transitioned them to C Pro. And then as people start expiring, and then any new classes, and then this semester, I transitioned all of our instructors to be C Pro instructors. We added crash bags. So we do have a BVM in every crash bag in every area with a HEPA filter as well. The only thing we're going to run into is, and I'm still working on it, is the replacements for those. Because I was very lucky and had a connection with the hospital here and got us some for our crash bags. But to replace them, if we ever use them, we're starting to work on getting a connection with the health center. Their distributor is working with me to build a contract. That way they are hospital grade, and it will help with that transition with the ambulance if it's the same BVM.
Yeah, we've also created some crash bags, but those are a little bit more restrictive use. I think our approach with shelter in place during emergency situation is preservation of life takes precedence over possible exposure. So in that regard, we would distribute 3-ply non-surgical masks as needed if anyone didn't have them. But again, preservation of life kind of supersedes that. And then I did put in the chat some options. We don't use a BVM for our standard facility teams because most of them are lay responder. But we have purchased a whole bunch of the one-way HEPA filter additions you can put on a rescue mask that again filter out some particulates and are fairly cheap, I think, to replace, but I've also heard that they're not. So perhaps the ones I put in there aren't the best quality, but that's what I found.
In terms of CPR here at SAM, we're transitioning to C Pro certifications. We only have, I think, 2 of our full-time staff members that got that instructor certification over the summer, and then a couple of us are going to be transitioning more over, myself included. In terms of shelter in place, we did make a couple modifications here and there, but kind of similar. It was more of like, you know, just the overall goal is preservation of life. So just giving out masks and everything. During this previous hurricane, we did have evacuees from Port Arthur stay. So I was up here at the rec center for about a week and a half. And so that was a very, very, very interesting, fun, frustrating. It's the most fun you would never want to have. But the university definitely took care of its staff and personnel. Like we provided, like, you know, masks and cots for the evacuees, but then the university provided us, as well as the National Guard and medical personnel that stayed with us, like N95s and face shields and everything. So it was, we were well, everyone was well taken care of. Yeah.
All right. That is the end of the pre-planned questions that we have. I don't know if anybody else has anything else related to outdoor facilities that they would like to talk with while we have this group here. I don't want to keep people longer than they need to be. I'm hearing nothing but crickets. All right, I want to thank you all for joining us. Lively discussion as always, showing a little love to the outdoor facilities. Again, this roundtable will be recorded, will be available on the Region 4's YouTube page. Thanks again to our sponsors, and have a great day, great weekend. That's it. Thanks and gig 'em.
Ross, I held my promise.
Come on, let's go. Let's go. Let's go.